Li from National Tokyo University.
Okay, dear students, good afternoon. My name is Xiangling Lu. I'm from Department of Physics, National Taiwan Normal University. Thank you.
Okay, shall we start? Opponent, please challenge reporter. Number 9. Accept. Number 9. Can you write down your opinion? Number 4. Hey, reporter, takes the floor.
Hello, my name is Karen Wong, and I'm going to be presenting number 9, soy sauce optics today. So first I'll go over the problem statement and phenomenon overview, then I'll talk about the theory, which includes the refractive index, Maragall effect, and then analyzing the steady and dynamic states. Then I will talk about our experimentation and discuss our experimentation versus our theory. So the problem statement. The problem statement states that using a laser beam passing through a thin layer, about 200 micrometers of soy sauce, the thermal lens effect can be observed. We are to investigate this phenomenon. So thermal lensing we can define as the changing in polarizability due to the laser, and this will lead to a change in the refractive index. And the Maragall effect says that this will lead to a curvature in the soy sauce film. So this is a sample graph of the diameter versus time of the laser image, and this explains our phenomenon. In the beginning, we observed the Maragall effect as when time bypasses, the diameter of the laser image increases. The second stage is the optical Kerr effect, or it's nonlinear optics. So although we believe that it's an important part of this theory, we will not be considering it in our math. And the third part is circular diffraction, where in the end, the diameter basically maintains the same, but it oscillates in a small range. We will be averaging we will be taking an average and analyzing it using the Maragall effect during the steady state. So we will be moving on to our theory, starting with the index of refraction. A material's index of refraction is dependent on the polarization of the dipoles within it. So when the laser when we apply a laser to it, it changes the polarization of the dipoles. And this causes a change in the refractive index, which we can associate with temperature using the Boltzmann distribution. And even though usually the index of refraction and temperature has a fifth power polynomial relationship, when we did our experiment, we can tell that in the small distances, the relationship is linear, and we took the dNdt, which is the slope of this line, at 0.000336. Also, since our laser is relatively low powered, we believe that thermal expansion is negligible, and we can use the heat diffusion equation to model the heat in. And then because the absorption of soy sauce is very high, we are using AI to model the energy delivered by the laser. And because due to the high absorbance of the soy sauce, we are saying that the cooling of the soy sauce is negligible, and this will be our completed heat diffusion equation. And we use the values for K, which is thermal diffusivity, and the C, which is heat capacity for water as approximations, because the majority of soy sauce is composed of water. And the Maragall effect basically describes the redistribution of the fluid due to the changes in surface tension and temperature. And because the outside of the soy sauce will have a higher surface tension, it will pull the inside, because the inside is where the laser is directly heating the soy sauce. And note that this is not the same as thermal expansion, because the volume is not changing. need to use surface tension, we got this graph from NIST Chemistry Runbook, which relates temperature to surface tension. And we can see that there is a linear trend between surface tension and temperature, and we'll be using this later to determine the surface tension of our soy sauce. So when the soy sauce is heated, the soy sauce will tend to form a concave lens, and this will be part of a circle. The concave lens will be part of a circle, and since it's not half a sphere or like a sector of a sphere, we will be approximating the volume using a cone. And then after, we can use an inverted version of the physics in a capillary tube and relate this equation, which relates the surface tension to the volume and the density. And the volume of the depression can be approximated with the volume. And using geometry from the diagram of the left, we can relate R to x squared plus h squared over 2h. And we also know that there's a relationship between surface tension and temperature from the previous slides. And I will be combining all of these into this equation here. And now we can factor in temperature gradient and assume the refractive index gradient to be quadratic, where that is true, and then we will have equation 3 and equation 4 here when we combine the two focal lengths. This will be our steady state grid approximation. So a summary of the equations, we have one equation to model the heat diffusion in the soy sauce, and one equation to describe the Maragoni effect, and one that relates the refractive index, and one that talks about the total. So moving on to experimentation. So this is our experiment setup. We have a laser that is about 405 nm plus or minus 10, and then when we shine it on a thin layer of soy sauce, which is about 200 micrometers, and the maximum we've ever observed is 400 micrometers. And this is the first section of our observation. We measured the diameter of the soy sauce over time, and we see that as time goes by, the diameter of the the laser image will increase because the outside will be pulling on the inside due to the Maragoni effect. And next, we observed the focal length of the soy sauce over time, and we track this and we see a linear relationship. However, in the beginning, that there is a larger difference in heat between the center and outside, so it's not perfectly linear. But once we found out that there is some sort of a linear relationship, we saw that it matched our theory, which said that as time goes by, our delta T should be decreasing, which means that our F should also be decreasing. So when used to model the steady state, the maximum versus intensity, we use Python to model the trend, and we see that as intensity increases, the maximum radius of the soy sauce image, the laser image also increases. So to conclude, we will see the Maragoni effect in both the dynamic and steady state situations, where the Maragoni effect explains why the thermal lensing exists because of the temperature difference between the center and the outside. So the outside will have a higher surface tension compared to the inside, which will result in the outside pulling on the inside, increasing the diameter of the soy sauce laser image. And in our experiments, we can see that both of the models were consistent with our data, and we can see that the focal length versus time for dynamic, along with the maximum radius versus intensity, all fit our theories for the steady state.
Finish? Okay. Opponent questions?
We'll turn to page 43. Yes, and we can see that the aerosol is really big, and so is that okay or is that right in your field to see it?
I think it's still
So high. Can you perhaps explain why the aerosol is so big?
because we didn't do enough trial.
And can you turn to other graph to do? Yes, and will have any error bar. So you do one time the experiment, or you do many times, but you didn't find the error bar.
This is like you track this, so
Yeah.
it's continuous, and there's so many data points. It's like it's basically continuous. It's hard to add error bars for every single one, or else you can't see it.
So that is the element for only one experiment.
No, we did this multiple times, and they all won this.
So they also see at all. Then, so we need that the soy sauce, because the soy sauce will become contact. Yes. So if you think if there is other like water or something liquid, do you think that will have a convergence on that?
I don't think this will happen.
So here we can choose like that water cannot have the that can be contact.
I think the soy sauce has a higher so they will the difference here.
Oh, so we can speak out of this. I cannot really hear it.
I think the water will
Yes.
have a lower absorbance level than the soy sauce, so the difference in heat will not be as drastic in order to form.
Okay, hands up. Opponent, please take the floor for 4 minutes presentation.
Today I'm going to
report.
report the problem type, first of all. And we can first speak about the policy. Using a laser interpretation for the simulation, about 200 μm of soy sauce, the searing dance effect can be observed. Investigated. And I will take for as a report type. And I will say that some physics has she didn't really can just she do a lot of theory about the equations of that the soy sauce have, and have the difference and the time formula to let us know that soy sauce will be. But she didn't explain really clearly to let us know that the connect to explain results and explain theory. That maybe that is other variables to that soy sauce optics. That will have a later sound and that will change the parties. But like the soy sauce and concentration or other things that will maybe affect that the results. And yes, and the third one just really cannot connect that the theory factors on it. So that is very a lot of we cannot really know what is on it. So maybe you can do next time to let us know what factor is what. Let us really know which one is clearly to that. We know about that the factors and the equations meanings. And he didn't just explain that by the arrow reason. That because she says that have a very big arrow bars, but she didn't just tell us that I have a really big arrow bar something. So maybe you can next time to explain this I have a really big arrow bar. Then she has some in experience he do a lot experience and she told us that his fitting is very good on this. So she do it very good on that experience. They have a small arrows, then maybe we can just talk in the discussion right now. So I want to ask some questions about this. Do you change the soy sauce concentration to that the different lasers on this?
No, we did test different lasers. We tested lasers of different color.
Yeah.
But we found that the laser was not intense enough for the effect to be observed.
No, I mean that you change the soy concentration.
No.
No. Then how do you think that the soy sauce concentration changes?
I think the soy sauce concentration will inherently affect the absorption of the soy sauce and how much it is actually water. So I guess the more concentrated soy sauce is, the greater the effect we expect to.
Then you first you told me that water cannot have a result like the soy sauce did.
Yes.
Then can you explain it again?
Because the absorption of the heat by the water.
We can solve it. Just if I have the same liquid that the sauce is the same of the soy sauce, then you think that it will have the same result of your experiment.
Yes.
If it is not available to change the soy sauce bean.
With like the lasers being the same.
Yes.
Yes.
So it means that the most important thing to check the laser beam of your result is the asperity.
Yes.
So it means that because the soy sauce liquid is have a very good osmosis that have these laser beams on it.
Wait, can you rephrase your question?
Oh, sorry, I can say this one. So it means that the soy sauce because have a really good cell is on it, so it have a result like this one. So you didn't think about other variables.
We considered like other variables like soy sauce or like the laser and stuff.
So you do other like the lasers or other concentration will have the different mu n of the laser beams on it.
We tested different lasers. We tested 3 lasers, but then of the 3 lasers, we were able to obtain.
So other variables will do.
Other variables.
Yes, just only
Just laser.
only laser and other there is no others.
What do you think other variables?
Because like the soy sauce concentration may change, and maybe the soy sauce means that mu n will change it. Maybe I just think that. So just that is a little pity. You didn't do a lot of variables to tell us that is not changed, but that is changed by of the result.
Okay.
Then another question is that about how do you think that if I have I'm not liquid, but I have the black liquid on this, and its absorption is very good, right?
Yes.
So that if that have a laser beam result.
So you're asking if I change soy sauce to a liquid that is completely
Yeah.
black, will it have the same effect?
Yeah, because we know that the common statement goes you need to use source, but I guess that we change the different liquids, maybe it will have the same result. So what do you think about this?
think the viscosity of the fluid also makes a difference because it is inherently still a surface tension. And if the viscosity is same along with absorption, I think then we can also observe this phenomenon.
Then how to measure the soil source being 200 Newton? Because the problem statement told us we need to use 200 Newton.
Just measure the volume of the soil source supported onto a disc.
Yes, but do you think because you as a theory we can learn that the soil source being is not really have a really like a square on the at that gas. So maybe that the volume is not the right thing we can use. Just maybe you can to that. I don't know how to say. Just have the one square, but that is a little balls on this side. Yeah, this one. Because we think that have a little place that didn't have the soil source being on it. So if you use a volume on it, maybe it was not a real right thing to have a 200 Newton on it.
So we did the volume on the total amount of soy sauce, and we divided by the area of the Petri dish we used. And this is just to model this curvature, and it's not what we use to measure the amount of soy sauce.
So how many mouths to put that the soil source being on the gas? You find for 10 or others?
10?
Just because you say that like L, just that is CM 3 that type. Just that. How many to put that in soil source?
Depends on the surface area of our Petri
Yes.
dish, and we have different ones.
Yes. Do you change that different volume of the soil source being on the gas?
No, because if we want to keep it at 200 micrometers, we can't change the volume. Because changing the volume will change the height.
Oh, so the gas is the constant, right?
Yes.
So how big is the gas?
The glass.
Yes.
I don't have the exact.
So if you put the soil source on, right, and you need to time that the area. So how many soil source volume do you put on the gas? Because I think that 200 million is a little difficult. That if that's all the gas have the soil source being on, maybe there is some place the gas didn't have a soil source being, so that you didn't do the right things to expand that volume of the expand that soil source being 200 million.
We didn't consider that there are places on the plate that there is no soy sauce. We assumed that the soy sauce will evenly spread.
So maybe that is not real as a reality. So how do you think? Just maybe just can concentrate some faults on this little part.
So you're asking what I could do to make the volume or the height of the soy
Just
sauce
I think just maybe you can just check the area. It's not only use the gas area. That's I think that is a good part can change it. You say that you have built a lot of field and you build a lot of equations for the soil source being results. But can you connect the results and the factors in that all the equations actually?
So for example, for this one, we measured the focal length, and then we realized that it's a downward trend. So as time goes by, we know that the change in temperature.
Sorry, can I ask a question? That what is N and what is X and what is K, what is delta T? You didn't tell us that really clearly on your PowerPoint. Because maybe you can do next time have a little point that tells us what is K, what is X, and what is N. Then it is more clearly to let us know how you are doing. Just that is
K is the constant that explains the linear relationship between change in density and change in surface tension and change in temperature, and delta T is change in temperature. H is the height of the soy sauce.
So that is a constant, 400 million. Okay, and what is N?
N is minus 1 over the R, which n is the index of the fraction.
So you are now pretty sure that n is what?
I think it's the index of the fraction.
Oh, let's come to the next question. Can we come to the next question? Yes, that is what is alpha, what is e, and what is n max. As we can already see very clearly on that old report.
Alpha is the angle of the index of the fraction, and n is the maximum index of the fraction, and d is the distance of the diameter of the laser range.
Okay, just I need to let you know that I cannot really clearly know what is on your report because you do a lot of questions, but you didn't explain the factor in your your question. So I just want to let you, I just suggest that you can make us know what is that factor on your question.
Thank you for your support.
Then can we turn to the about that top? Just the alpha is really big, so can you tell me why?
Why the error bars?
Yes.
Because we calculate error bar by dividing our standard error by standard deviation by the square root of how many trials we did. And for this graph, we just didn't do as many trials as we did for the other ones. So the error bars are always
So how many times do you do this experiment?
2.
2. Then the alpha is so big. So I know that the experiment is not really good at. Can I say that?
Although it might not be the most accurate, but we think that this shows the trend of the maximum radius and intensity, which we are only corresponding to our theory based on the trend and not exact values.
Then another question is about the graph. You didn't have the unit teach that, so I cannot really know how the graph means. So what is the unit at x and y?
The maximum radius is in meters, and intensity there's no meters for that.
So next time when you match the graph, you can use the unit and down that we know that here. And comes to that, didn't have this the soy sauce that you have 3 theory and told us that the soy sauce, right? You can have that out first. Yes, that I can see that at the last part of the last part of this graph. The same. No, that. And you have the little critical. So that is a sign or other functions can to that is.
Yes, I think we can model it using sine and cosine, but I don't think it is necessary to answer this problem.
So this of your theory is by your equations.
This is confirmed. We tested this circular diffraction using the average for a steady state.
So we do a lot of equations and fittings, but a little experience, right?
And so we have
I'm going to summarize the discussion.
So in his report and discussion, we can know a lot, to do a lot of equations and do a lot of fittings and do a lot of theory experiments. But we cannot really know that the equations factors and what the graph means for us. Then in his find that L bar is so big that is a place he can just have made more good on that. Maybe he can do more explain that L bar small or that us know that theory is wrong. And in his in her last graph, another question is he didn't put in that cannot really know that graph that want to told us. And the most but he do a lot of explaining that us know the theory and questions that is very good and taught us very clearly on it. But that's the most biggest important is that she did a lot of questions and theory, that's again. But she didn't tell us why and why to connect to explain results. I think that is the most important she can do and do well. That is my suggestion.
Time's up. Review.
Questions for both sides. First of all, thanks for recommending that this source of can be compared with the concave length. What is the difference between concave and source of? Source from the recording. What's different?
I'm saying that the soy sauce will form a concave lens.
Both of them are almost the same. And how about opponent?
So you say the social system. So
what?
I cannot read. So
What's the difference between concave lens and soy sauce?
contact lens. What is? Sorry, my English is bad.
That is what he used in here.
Oh.
Yes.
I think there is a lot of different knowledge because contact lens is it's not a liquid, but soy sauce is a liquid. That is a very big difference. But I want to say something.
But except of this, what's difference of inner effect? What would it make the lens, the laser become different?
Because the soy sauce need have the laser beam that the soy sauce hot, but the content that didn't.
I mean, what would it affect on the light? And we can move on to the next question. Can you give me a definition of thermal lens effect?
I defined it on my
And for you, what about the definition of thermal lens effect?
Sorry, my English.
It is
Yes.
mentioned in the performance statement that it should be here. What is thermal lens effect? Can you give a definition?
I think that some lens is that have a hot things that will liquid or like
A clear definition.
clear definition. Just I cannot really pose it at but
I believe that is a change in polarizability due to laser, and that leads to a change in refractive index, and also the variegating will lead to the curvature in the source as well.
Thank you. And here, laser lens. A laser beam is mentioned. And what if you don't using laser beam, but using something else?
Well, since the problem statement said to use a laser beam, we tested only laser
And
beam.
yes, after using laser beam and make it temperature go increase, and what would happen?
I think that if the light or whatever thing we're using is not as intense as a laser beam, we won't accept that. We won't observe the phenomenon.
How about you?
I think that's for a lot of different on it because the laser beam is high energy on it, but the other light it didn't have a high energy. So that the soy sauce beam have 7 less. I think that just by guess. I cannot be sure.
Does her theory means the result?
I think
Yes or not?
yes.
And
Hands
what do
up.
you think?
Hands up. Can review text before.
Hello, Roger and fellow commuters. I'm the reviewers from TYPT, and we are going to have a review of the discussion of soy sauce optics. First, let's take a look about the problem statement. in this problem sentence, there are two main focus. First, what is the phenomenon of the dermal lens effect, since it is mentioned here? And second, how will the relevant parameters affect this effect that although it requires a 200 nuance in there and laser beam, but there are still some things can be changed. This is the review of the reporters, and in the first part of the session, they have a good, clear introduction of the theory, but they do not clearly define which parameters they are going to use next. And second, for theory part, they provide qualitative pictures, but there's no physics pictures, and also there's not theories. And third, the setup, there's no pictures on the actual setup that we can't know how the 200 nuance letter being done. And fourth, experiment parts that have clear comparison on tendencies, but not actual comparison on the real value. And the last conclusion, the clear conclude is included in his present, but there's no discussion about the possible errors. For opponents, he gives a good suggestion to a reporter about how to improve her presentation, but he also gave the physical insights of the possible error, but he did not make a precise control on prior sessions, and he did not focus on the basic function, just talking about the details of the presentation and the error bars. First of the discussion topics, the opponent asks that does the concentration of the soy sauce matter? And the reporter answered that may matter due to different properties. And my point of view is reporter can conduct more experiments on verifying the relation. The second discussion topic is what would happen if different kind of liquid. Reporter said that system all present surface tension and other properties which discussed. So yes, they considered about different kind of liquid. And I have the same opinion with reporter. The third one is the graph of diameter does represent a click motions, and reporter thinks that the graph could be described closely by functions but won't affect the results. And same as a reporter. There is an additional opinion that I want to over. First of all, though the results correctly, the tendency predicts there would still be some difference between the soy sauce and a concave lens. Not only it needs a laser, but also that it will change due to the temperature. The focus will change. And second, maybe possible discussion on error would make the investigation more comprehensive. Since the reporter only do few experiments and then can check more parameters and also do more experiments to reduce the error bars. Thank you.
The reporter would like to conclude by once again saying what thermal lensing means, because some people may not have understood. So I would say that the change in polarizability due to the laser will lead to changes in the refractive index of the soy sauce. And once that is observed, the Maragall effect models both the dynamic and steady state situations will be observed. And we say that the possible source of error might be the volume of soy sauce, as the poster had mentioned, because of inconsistent measurement. Although I think that our way of measuring would not differ by that much due to areas that don't have soy sauce. And there might also be a waiting period when the soy sauce is placed under the laser versus the actual phenomenon, because it takes time for the soy sauce to show. And thank you, opponent, for suggesting. Thank you, opponent and reviewer, for suggesting these two the variables that I should test more variables, for example, the concentration of soy sauce, and I should do more trials so we can reduce the size of the error.
Okay. Questions from jury?
I have a question for both of you. Is the intensity profile of laser important? Suppose you have a laser which you have a uniform intensity. Would you expect to have the same effect?
If our intensity for the laser is continuous,
Uniform in the space.
yes, because then we would not have the difference in heat within the center and the outside.
Yeah, but, yeah. Okay, so you think that's important. How about that 50 to 0?
Because since we're only heating, the laser is not uniform, so we, at only one point, a small area of the soy sauce being heated, so there will be heat diffusion from the center to us, which we take into account.
How about
I agree with him. I agree with him.
you?
In my point of view, I think that the word hits the soy sauce and makes the difference, which is important in the in reporter's experiment.
So I have a question for the reporter. Could you go to your transparency page 20, your experimental setup? Okay, you are using the laser wavelength, the purple laser, 405 nanometer, okay? And the laser power is 100 milliwatts, quite high. Did you change different laser power for your experiment?
Yes, we changed a few different laser powers, but we found that at 100 milliwatts, we observed
And the second question is what's the spot size of your laser beam on the soy sauce? The laser spot
Inside.
on top of the soy sauce. Did you measure? We don't have the number. Okay. And then you observe the diameter of the image on the paper. Okay. So go back to 20 page. 20. See, you put the paper below the soy sauce and you measure that diameter of the image. And you also show the data for focal length as a function of intensity. So how do you measure the focal length?
we're measuring the focal length soy sauce there's a concave.
Oh, it's a concave length and
Measure the focal length.
you measure the focal length of the concave length by the image of. Okay, thank you.
Any other question from jury? I want to ask the reporter, do you do variable of h, the distance from
No, we have H.
kept it in the
Because we're
distance?
only using H to project the soy sauce, so we can see.
So it didn't move the object, no? Okay.
More questions. For the opponent and the reviewer, the reporters say they didn't see this effect by using the green laser and the red laser. How about your experiment?
I think that is possible to use in all those colors of laser.
So
Because
did you observe the laser induce thermal length with the green laser and red laser in your
I
experiment?
have seen a papers that it has used green lasers companies.
That's a paper, but how about your result?
My review. I think my experiment is not very good, so I cannot really use my experiment to argue that the results.
Okay, how about reviewer?
I think that is because of the soy sauce that we produce. That is because it is not transcript. If the user set color with the soy sauce, it may be observed and we can observe.
Did you reserve this effect with the green and red laser in your experiment?
We don't see this. We don't see this
With green and red laser.
in reverse options that works effect.
Okay, let's make the score. Okay, for the reporter. Seven, 7, 6, 7, 6. For the opponent. 7, 7, 7, 7, 6. For the reviewer. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Okay, thank you everyone. Let's break, let's break. 10-minute break. You introduce yourself. So let's start. Yes, okay? From the reporter, please introduce yourself.
我叫金光友康光 S601，但是按理也是关于
Okay. Opponent, please introduce yourself.
We are from first senior high school and our team is TYPT 2. And we have already mentioned the reason in the ceremony. And my name is Wu Xinyu and he is Chen Zhi and he is 22. And he is Deng Wenli. He is 22. Good. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, reviewer, please introduce your team.
We're the all-nighters from Happy American School. My name is Rem. That's Claire. Karen, Austin, and Kelsey.
Okay, great. Shall we start now? Okay, opponent, please challenge reporter.
from the X Sci-Fi song.
Number 8.
Yes.
Go to number 8.
No, 1 minute. 1 minute to make decision.
Accept. So number 8, Sci-Fi sound. Okay, please put the name, the presenter name. That's all.
Then I'm going to talk about the power. I'm going to talk about the power 8 Sci-Fi sound. And we have 5 parts. First one is introduction. Second is experiment, investigate. Third is different characters. 4 is compression, and 5 is conclusions. And we first talk about the power state. Having a heat spin and make a sound like a laser shot in the science fiction. It's fake and expanded phenomenon. That's the Sci-Fi sound is like June. That's the sound from high frequency to low frequency. And we can hear the sound. So just that the spin is dispersed by the force or oscillates by itself, it will have a Sci-Fi sound. If the spin is dispersed, then the sound will be loud. And it's not just like oscillations. That the sound will not just very quiet. And we cannot really hear. Let's skip this part. Okay. Then second, and we just have the first tab on the topics. As dispersions, I need to explain that the dispersions that light. The dispersions means that light was other waves in a very big densities that will have a different velocity of each frequencies. So like this part, that that light is more fast. So this phenomenon is the same to the sound. So we have this we call extended dispersions. That the high frequencies will go faster and the low frequencies will go slower. Then we can hear the sound like June because the high frequencies go faster. Then we choose another way to have the Sci-Fi sound is observations. Just in first we use tap and other force that have a Sci-Fi sound. But when this oscillation by itself, what happens? Just that. Sorry, that's a video cannot fit it. So that's will have wave from the Haken spin. Then that's the clone each other will bump to each other. That will have a Sci-Fi sound, but that is not really it's not really clear to hear it. So later I will say it. Then I need to explain chicken sound. The Sci-Fi sound is one kind of frequency. That is means from high frequencies to low frequencies quickly, or from low frequencies to high frequencies quickly. That's also called chicken sound. Then model. Yes. Because that is a frequency spin and it's made by metal. So the metals is a high density. So the frequencies velocity will change a lot. So if the dispersion, if the frequency is low, and here will have it's low here, and it will have a oscillator air. So it will have high frequencies and low frequencies here. But if the wave go here, the high frequencies go faster and it oscillates the air. So we can hear the high frequencies more faster than we can hear. So that is why we can hear the Sci-Fi sound. So this is our Sci-Fi sound, just like a long ice hole, and we saw ice into that was tune. As the ice drop the ground, it will have a Sci-Fi sound from the bottom because that is very long and have a densities that the frequencies have different. So that is two. Just one is tap and one is oscillate. So observations, just first is the Sci-Fi sound, just that is the problems we told that we need to solve. And little vibrations, oscillated particles, and perpendicular. Then we use tools like FFT or STFT. Then I have no time to explain, so let's skip. So I need to explain this sound that STFT is for each little 0.15 second, that will have built one FFT to that the frequencies to have a function of time. And this is the Sci-Fi sound features, just go from high frequencies to low frequencies. And I think in my experience that has 3 P's on it. So I have a little gas, just that P wave, S wave, and various wave to that means that the frequency speed Sci-Fi sound will have 3 peaks now. So that I will change a lot of different parameters to that as how to change the Sci-Fi sound will isn't changed by these parameters. So equipment just like this. So just like this. So you can see it here. I do a lot of experiments and change a lot of bubbles. So just first one is free oscillations. Just we didn't have just we like the we put the frequency speed natural fold down and we oscillate by itself. But as that with I said before that the Sci-Fi sound isn't really clearly and cannot hear quite. And it is quite cannot hear. So that the analyze is very ugly. We cannot really see that the Sci-Fi sound. So next we change the code densities. And let's a video again. Just I hold that the frequency speed buttons. If that the buttons, if that the cone density no dissolve, and that will no Sci-Fi sound. So I change the different tapes to from three just taking the frequency speed and analyze. And this one you can see that is more clearly than the oscillates. So yes, you can see. So I use that dispersed by our center to let the sound more bigger. But it's not really good as my experiment. It's really ugly. So I can conclude that the tapping will let the Sci-Fi sound is more clear and more good to analyze. And change tap tools and check volume and change a lot of bubbles to let us know that Sci-Fi sound is always very similar. Just that it goes down and slope is very similar too. And I have changed two frequency speed, just at least. And the spin constant, and change a lot of bubbles. I need to say this. Just we let the frequency spin natural fall down, and it has the length of the frequency speed hole is 175 and 125. That have a really clear Sci-Fi sound on this. You can see that is repeat. So, but when we change to 75, then the Sci-Fi sound is not really clear this because the code density is up. That's my result. Oh, that's I use because in my experience that sometimes the Sci-Fi sound is really quiet that I cannot really hear it clearly and analyze clearly. So I put a curve on the frequency screen, but I stuck it that so that the curve didn't oscillate to backlash my result. So you can see that I put the curve at 10 centimeters, 65 centimeters, 120 centimeters. That we can see the centimeters is more clear, is the most clear. Yes. So I have the curve up 3 poles and down 3 poles so that we can see the up 3 poles is more clearly because the up length is more smaller. So the length is more smaller, then the Sci-Fi sound will more clear. And the other length, then we let the frequency speed horizontal, but maybe that each cone didn't disperse each other, so that the sound is not really clearly to analyze and to hear it. And you can see that the Sci-Fi sound isn't very clear and have a lot of peak. So I'm compressing that the theory. So I see that the papers that we can see the formula. And this formula is that the frequency is to time. And it will have very good fitting at my Sci-Fi sound. So out of my experience, that's all the same Sci-Fi sound. But because it's dispersion, it didn't have change. That's the sound dispersion in the second speed. So what will have my Sci-Fi sound? That is the dispersion, accounting dispersion that. So will you use 2 long metal stick to tap each other or hit each other? It will have a Sci-Fi sound the same. And just if that have a table with, oh sorry, I cannot really hear it. That if I really hit loudly. That's our Sci-Fi sound it. But it's not very clear because the density is not very big. And simulation, as that is the paper's things. And a conclusion that my theory, that the cognitive expression is the most important thing. The sound speed will change it as the dispersion. And I analyze as STFT, and STFT is each time, each 0.15 seconds have one FFT on it. And I trained a lot of bubbles, and that we know that the result of the Sci-Fi sound is the same. And that is my method. Thank you for attention.
Okay, questions?
Okay, so firstly, I think the very start of your presentation, you mentioned that you use amplifier to measure those sounds, right?
Yeah. No, just sound. It's not all.
I mean, you used an amplifier to analyze the phenomenon, right? I mean, a microphone or whatever.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So have you considered that one of the properties of the microphone is actually have another properties which is called frequency response, which would potentially affect your analysis? Have you considered that?
Okay, I cannot.
Sorry.
My English.
Okay. Okay. So have you considered that such a microphone as an amplifier, an effect called frequency response could potentially affect your analysis?
So can I ask what is frequency response?
Like while we got a microphone here and you input like a sort of sound in it, and actually just if I input like a sound with like 1 hertz, 2 hertz, and combination all the hertz with 1 decibel, and actually it turns out to be like 1118 or 1118. It will be cause the difference. It will cause the difference in your analysis. I consider that in your research.
Because we all use the same thing to record our Sci-Fi sound, but so that things maybe will not affect a lot in my result.
Okay. Okay. So could you give me a quick short like what's the difference of tap and oscillate? These two methods do to your phenomenon.
Because oscillates that each cones each other will have the conclusions, but that hit is really small. That cannot have a really big sound at
Hands
the
up.
dispersion goal.
before.
Alright, on number 3 and other competitors. So I'm going to give a quick overview on the presentation from the recorder. So first you can look at the part of the statement. Maybe on Untitled Chapter can make a sound like a laser shot in a science fiction movie, investigate and explain the phenomenon. And by this part of the statement we can mainly focus on 3 points. And first is what is the definition of sci-fi sound, which they actually give a pretty good present. And why does the tapping or the action make that sound? And 3, how will the different parameters affect the output sound? So first thing, let's take a review on the presentation itself. So first thing, in the first part, they did an introduction where they make a clear sound presence. And in the second part, they made an investigation, the preliminary investigation on the observation of the model itself, but they have not given us any predicting model or relevant theory. But in the next part, regarding the different parameters, they have great experiment that supported with great picture and figures, but it did not explain how they change your parameters. Like how did they do it? And they did not well explain the figures because they are keeping your pages, and they and there's sort of something like related with time control. And the next part, the comparison, you did not have a great comparison on your theory which you previously taught, and it's just like you bump out another number which just fits the line. And in the next part, the conclusion, you did okay, that's about like you did not give us a very clear definition on FFT and SDFT, though it's another algorithm, I believe. Okay, so firstly we'll begin our discussion now. Okay. Okay, so firstly, again, it's regarding the amplifier. Don't you? I believe because like in most of the time we tried the different tool or different amplifier we use in our experiment, but we believe that even though we are trying to give it an consistent or smooth sound in every frequency, but it still sometimes outputs the result that is not quite continuous. So we believe that it may potentially gives you some error in your experiment with feedback.
Can you expand easily to let me know? So
okay, we'll do that later. So okay, so about the damping. Okay, so have you tried like any because like we got syncing here, have you tried like do some dampings on the ear side and check if is there any different phenomenon of it?
just checking the weight of the frequency.
I mean dampings which like you say that will cause after the dispersion we can observe some kind of reflection on the slinky, right? Like the wave was going this way and going back and going over and over and over. So it could also potentially like affect your experimental observations or whatever. So have you tried like damping on one side or the side you put your amplifier and see the difference?
I have changed a different phase to that and changed different, put my cup at record the sound.
Sorry, do it again.
Just I changed the different ways to tap the frequency and change the different my cup because I use cup to let the sound more bigger. So I change the different cup weight. Cup. Yes.
Okay, so okay, to the next part. Could you show me? Do you have any discussions on the different wave shapes, like the longitudinal shape and the transverse shape? Like, could you show me the part?
Oh.
So, like, which of these two kind of wave shape that affects actually your phenomenon?
Can I just write the example? So, here is a frequency, right? So, if I tap here, the frequency here will have a vibrations, and the frequency itself will have a vibration too, right? So, we are saying that you have the different ways transfer, like S wave, P wave, and resonance wave. So that we have three peaks on it.
So, which wave do you think that give us the sci-fi sound?
All will have.
All will have, but it seems that they don't even share the same wave velocity, right? So it means that you're keeping observing that two waves or the two is it tripping? I forgot the name. Tripping wave at the same time with, and even an amplifier, you don't even know that is accurate, right? I mean, like you measure those two kind of wave shape at the same time. Is it?
Oh, I didn't measure the S wave and P wave.
You didn't measure the S wave and the P wave. So what kind of wave you measure?
Just I measure the sound. I didn't measure the S wave and P
Oh,
wave.
I mean, okay. So, I mean, like, well, you say that this two wavelength both gives you the sound. So I mean, like, you're actually receiving the data from this two, the sound coming from them at the same time, right?
This will not have a semi sound because it's
Okay.
and this one will. But this S here, because wave can analyze in different ways, and this wave will contain P wave, S wave, and nose wave.
Okay. And so, do you think the wave shape on the right would affect your phenomenon?
Yes, this will a little affect my result.
Okay, so then let's go on to the parameters. So you conduct like two kind of length difference. Well, it's like first is about the density or the total length, right? You pull out to another length, or you just give and thinking with the same density with a different length, right?
Oh, I changes the different length and different clone density.
Also, you did both, right? So, can you tell me like what's the difference between these two experimental sets?
Because if I change, that's I can just three things to say about it. Because sci-fi sound is in a one aspect of no, just need to that have a clone to bounce to other or other out force to that. So if I change the length, the clone numbers will the clone densities will be more will change it too. So the clone numbers is more bigger.
So how do you think it will like just if I just pull out today, what would happen?
Pull out part.
So just like we have an thinking of L, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to put out with an length of delta L, like L plus delta L, so it will become L prime. So what would happen to the thinking sound, to the cycling sound?
If the clone density, that means that the clone density will be more smaller, right?
Yes. And
So the clone bond to each other is more difficult. So
Yes.
that the sound and sound will more now clearly and will be more quiet.
You mean more not clearly in amplitude, right?
No, it's in sound.
You mean in the movement of the frequency peak? Or-
The semi sound clear. Just
all right. So, okay. So, have you like tried before? Like, well, we know like it's one of the property of all thinking objects. Like, we know that they all have a limitation of elasticity. Like, while you are putting it so hard that you will never going back together again. Yeah. So, have you like discussed about what happened after you exceed that limitation?
that is not important in this problem statement because this problem statement that told us is the sci-fi sound. And the sci-fi sound most important is have a disturb and it will have a dispersion and it will have sci-fi sound. So that is not just that's only a fact that the clone bounce to the other or not. So that is not really important that in this experiment.
Okay, so do you show up like any videos on the on your FFT or FCFT?
Or FFT,
I mean in real like shown the dispersion.
just I cannot right now to show the data. So
back to the part that we talked about damping. It's like, okay, this one. Yeah, the real one. So while we're really doing the experiment, just for example, as a set, so what do you think if after you tap it, then I would like to hold my hands here as a damping? So what do you think would happen?
Because that's the oscillation of the wave transport will be stopped at your hand. So
Yes.
that only have a little side-by sound.
A little side by side. So it means that you think that after a lot of reflection inside, it will become bigger?
That just transport a lot more become bigger.
I don't.
No.
You don't say that.
I didn't say that.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
That's it. Seriously. Yes. You mentioned in your presentation, do you think that the velocity difference is more great than in the air than in the slinky?
Oh, you have what this means? Can you explain this clearly again? Sorry.
I mean the.
Just maybe you can just draw it that I can just know it clearly.
So I mean, well, in the air or in the slinky, do you think that the difference between the difference of velocity between different frequency would be like larger?
Larger? What the frequency?
Time's up.
Bigger.
Component summarize.
Alright, so throughout the presentation, we've seen that the reporter gave us a clear definition on the Sci-Fi sound is actually a phenomenon from the dispersion of the sound wave and or the wave in the slinky, which causes the movement of the peak in frequency. While we can analyze it through the program and discuss a lot about like what are the lengths and the coil density have to do with the phenomenon and also the opponents have in the opponent's opinion we also believe that because in their experiment they have not considered like any conditions with dampings like which the opponent believes would be pretty important in this experiment.
Okay, time's up. Reviewer questions.
Okay, thank you, reporter, and thank you, opponents, for your discussion. You said that the damping is an important factor in considering this phenomenon. So can you elaborate on what's your position on that?
what's my position on that?
Right. How does damping affect Sci-Fi sound? While the opponent thinks about it, can I ask the reporter, how did you come up with the simulated curves on your slides? So for the curves that you drew using a computer, how did you come up with those?
You say that the pictures that I use FTFT?
No. The computer ones that you drew using a program, I guess.
Or you mean that how I draw the line?
How you drew the computer graph? Can the opponent please answer my previous question?
Okay, so we think that because the dampings while we're doing on the sinking, or like take this two sides of it, sinking and the amplifier is here, we always, what we found that is actually while we're doing dampings on the different side, it actually refers to different phenomenon, which is
Could you clarify what you mean by different sides?
like the side with the amplifier, if you did a damping on the side of the amplifier, it would
And
actually,
how do you do this damping?
like, in simple way, just use your hand on it.
Okay, got it, okay. Thank you.
So because the
No,
last
not this one, but the one after. This one on the left. How did you get that graph?
that is from the paper.
Okay, got it. Question to the opponent. So you talked about the difference between longitudinal and transverse waves on the slinky. Could you clarify your position on how this affects the Sci-Fi sound?
It's a hypothetical. I am not very sure about the actual message.
Okay. And for the reporter, for the time delay between the curves, could you clarify the time delay between the curves is dependent on which parameters of this wave?
Or you mean that the bands of two peaks?
So the horizontal distance between these two peaks,
Yes.
what part of the slinky would affect that time difference?
I think because my experiment is as wave, P wave, and levels wave. So that is this wave has a different transfer velocity. So that's the reason that have the peak.
And how do you explain the discrepancy between your data, which only has 3 curves? You argue that there's only 3 curves, and the paper is not. What do you think is the main difference between these 2 graphs?
I think that the paper just have it a lot of time. So that will have a lot of curve on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Review the text before.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ren, and today I'm going to be reviewing Sci-Fi sound. So let's review the problem statement first. the problem statement states that tapping a helical spring can make a laser-like shot and investigating the claims phenomenon first. The Poirot's main points. First, he defines dispersion, which is that different frequencies travel different velocities. And he has a very clear qualitative explanation of what causes Sci-Fi sound. And he also stresses that metals are high-density materials, so the wave travels more efficiently, and there is a clear Sci-Fi sound this way. He says that a longitudinal wave will produce a clear Sci-Fi sound, a longer spring produces a clearer Sci-Fi sound, and a distance. If you hit the spring at a place closer to this microphone, then you also get a clearer sound. However, he did not really quantify what he means by clear, and more peaks for a horizontal spring. And he did not also explain that qualitatively. Why is it that there are more peaks for horizontal spring? Okay, next. So the Poirot's performance, the pros is that, first of all, he has a very creative presentation of the Sci-Fi sound, good sound effects. He has a clear experimental setup, and he tests many different variables. However, he does not have a relationship, like clear graphs that indicate any like square or inverse or like linear relationships between his variables and his dependent variables. And in that sense, he's just quantifying it by clear or not clear. And it's not very, I cannot be sure if the theory actually matches the data. His spectrograms are also very blurry, so that we can barely make out the frequency-time relationship, the inverse squared relationship of that. Okay, next. Poland's performance. He points out the potential error in the microphone's frequency response. He also first points out the mathematical theory. However, he did not carry through that, and he did not clarify his own stance on what he thinks the mathematical theory should be in this phenomenon. And he asked about a lot of different parameters, such as the stretching of the spring, also geometry of the slinky, but he did not clarify his own ideas. He could have also questioned more parameters, such as the cross-section shape of the spring, and also, and yeah, next slide. So discussion point 1. The opponent pointed out what is the effect of damping. The Poirot said the Poirot did not answer the question. The reviewer thinks that due to the dispersive nature of the spring, some energy is lost each time the wave deflects. So this is why, as you go across the graph, it becomes more horizontally slanted. Okay, next. Point pointed out that which wave is significant in Sci-Fi sound. The report says that all are important, but he does not really qualify his argument. In our own experiment, we did it with both transverse and longitudinal, and both of these produced a Sci-Fi sound. However, the speed may be different depending on the specific geometry of the spring. Next. The opponent also pointed out, how does changing the geometry of the spring, so what happens when you straighten out the spring? Does that change the Sci-Fi sound? The report says that there's a smaller core density, so the Sci-Fi sound will be more unclear. And the reviewer agrees with that. If you stretch the spring out considerably, there will be fewer echoes on the graph. However, there will still be an inverse square relationship between frequency and time, and that can still be observed, but there will be fewer echoes. Next slide. The opponent also pointed out, what if it exceeds a limitation so it cannot bend it back again? The reporter said this is not important to the phenomenon. The reviewer thinks that this is important to a degree. If you stretch out the spring to a certain point, increasing the tension, so that it still remains its helical geometry, this should not matter too much, because what is affecting the wave speed is how far it travels along the slinky. So even if you stretch it out, you're hitting at the same point, the wave still travels the same distance. However, if you stretch it out more, there will be less echoes. Next. Discussion point 4, difference of velocity between air and slinky. The report did not answer this question, but he had the answer in the beginning of the slide. So my thought is that the wave travels faster through the slinky because of high density. Next slide. Okay. Thank you.
At first, that the opponents that the microphone from Harvard, but I think that the microphone didn't affect our results a lot because we use the same microphone, and dispersion is a. And the opponent also asked me another question, just if we dispersion in other material or other things in. So I will expand it. So because you can see that the metal density is more bigger. So if then the dispersion will more clearly to that here, then will be changed to other density is small material. The dispersion will not really clear. That is my that is my expect that I for the opponents. That I think that the opponents and the review get me a very good suggestion that I cannot really define that is what is clear and what is not clear. I just only use my eye to see and I use my ear to listen. So that is my fault that I didn't do it very well. And thanks for the reviewer and the opponent's suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, question from jury.
So I have a question for the opponent. Since you bring your experimental setup, could you demonstrate the real sound to us?
And try to cut. Use a paint.
Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. How do you just do it? It's good? Oh. Okay. If the reporter showed this video, so we can understand more clearly.
Yeah, so
Any question?
Probably I should just confirm once again. So which dispersion, the dispersion in the slinky or dispersion in the air, which one is important?
I think that is most important is that the dispersion in the city.
So then what you mentioned is the air example image.
I mean that because the dispersion is inside the Helmholtz speed, but the Helmholtz speed will oscillate, so that the air oscillate and have a sound, so that us hear.
Okay. What about component of the reviewer? So what are the reviews? Yeah.
I think it's just giving a great example on the
Could you please clarify the question again?
My question is there's a dispersion for waves, some waves inside the slinky. There are also dispersion in the air. So which one is more important to explain this phenomenon?
I think to explain the phenomenon, what we did was we looked at the bending moment of the slinky. So I think the dispersion in the spring is the main part of it.
I have a question for the reviewer. You mentioned about a clear sci-fi sound, a clear. So how can we produce a clear sci-fi sound? What do you think?
Oh, I was just quoting the reporter, but to produce a clear sci-fi sound, I think we should have a longer slinky.
Longer?
Yes. Also one that has a cross-sectional area. It should be a circle for the spring sound.
Anything else?
I think we should also increase the number of coils on the slinky.
Okay, same question to opponent.
on the reason of the clear.
How to
How can we
make the
produce
clear
a clear
sci-fi sound?
sci-fi?
Actually, it was the result of we have got this like mainly to the mostly mainly to the reviewer, but also involved with the dampings because we believe that the reflection will somehow give us a non-clear phenomenon.
How about reporter?
Because in my experience, I do the result that if you have a clear hit and that's a cone bounce the other, it will have a clear sci-fi sound. So I think that the tap outside for the cone bounce the other is most important thing.
And another question to three of you. When you hit the spring, the direction, will it get any different? Hit it horizontal or vertically?
I think the direction in which you hit the spring, it might change depending on the cross-sectional area of the slinky. For example, if when you hit from different directions, the moment inertia changes, then that sound will be different. However, you use cross-sectional area that's a circle, then it shouldn't matter that much. If you you did it transversely or longitudinally.
Okay, how about opponent?
It's just that.
So it is the
Well,
same.
like the
different?
reviewer has made a very great explanation on it, which I mostly agree with. Yeah.
Okay. How about reporter? Your opinion?
Oh, I think that will not go back because that's a tap. The tap is a sound from. I think that's the first sound that will in the sound in the second speed, but it was dispersion. So that's the most important is that you tap the sound and that sound is dispersion. So I think that all of the silent sound will stimulate.
Similar.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let's make the score. Okay, for reporter, 6, 7, 7, 6, 6. For opponent, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. For reviewer, 8, 8, 8, 9, 7. Okay, thank you all of you. Let's have 15 minutes break. So we start opponent challenge reporters.
We challenge question 6, hurricane ball.
Accept, okay. Please put your presenter names.
Alright. On number 3 and fellow commentators, I'm Martin from Team Analysis 2, and today I'm going to present you problem number 6, hurricane pulse. So firstly is the outline of our presentation. We'll begin with our introduction, observation, and later a theoretical model with Cooper, which is followed by the setup of our experiment, and then the experiment data, and that's finally the conclusion. So first thing is take a look at the problem statement. So two steel balls are joined together and respond at incredibly high frequency by first spinning them by hand. And then play on a CO2, for example, a drinking straw, expand and investigate this phenomenon. So according to the problem statement, we could derive two main key points, which is the aim of our investigation. So first, what causes the phenomenon of high frequency? What is the term high frequency is so important to the problem statement, and what does the action of spinning by hand and flowing through a tube has to do with the phenomenon itself? So firstly, as two video I would like to show you. Like here, you can see that there's a camera on the top and camera on the side, and you can clearly see how the ball's moving in action. And if you see clearly in the video, you will see that other than the originally the rotation on the axis that we originally expected, you can see the two balls also form a tilt against the angle, and also you can see, if you see clearly, you can see it generates a spin on the axis of symmetry. And next part is our theory. So first thing is the definition of equilibrium and the mode of inertia that we used. Okay, so parameter. So we call the rotation on the axis the revolution angular velocity, which we call it rotate, and the angular velocity on the axis of symmetry, the spin velocity. Okay, so what we think the cause of high frequency is, like at the very first part of the motion, we can see that the two balls left off from the surface and then started to spin. And we consider that the spin actually allows the system to obtain PRM, which is the pre-rotation motion, and allow the surface to give less friction on the balls, which it allows it to spin in very, very high velocity. And after we give it acceleration from the air, it's just spun in a very, very high frequency. So let's firstly talk about the mechanism of lifting. So why would it lift? So we firstly divide this mechanism of lifting into two stages. So first is the initial lift, and secondly energy minimization. So what is the initial lift? Our definition on the initial lift is actually the first start that gives the system an exit of while two balls are safely lying on the ground. So we think there are several reasons that may cause an initial lift, but we think that most dominantly the dissipative forces would do it. Since that while we're spinning the balls by hand, because our hands are definitely the imperfect starters, we're going to give the centroid of the ball a net force, which allows the force to move, the centroid of the force to have a movement, and which would actually give the friction, which is acting on the collapse point, another component, which gives the system a chance to tilt. And after that, we try to analyze this kind of lifting in the aspect of energy. So you can see here we sum up the mechanical energy of the system, such as the rotation energy on the z direction, and the rotation energy on the e3 direction, which is the axis of symmetry, and then the potential energy. And because you can see here that the variables such as the omega and the theta weren't actually independent in the action. So we have to substitute it with the constraint of the conservation of angular momentum in here. So after we simplify it into this form and take the derivative of this expression by theta, which means that we're going to get the lowest point of energy while in a certain angle with the surface. And by solving it, we could get this form here. And just like, for example, we plug in one of the parameters of one of the system, in the case like with the radius of 11.1 millimeter and mu equals 1, which means the two balls are actually touching on the surface, we can get a form like this, which you can see this component is called actually linear. So what we could get from our theoretical model is like, firstly, we can actually get the relationship between the rotational speed and the spin velocity, which means that which has a relationship between multiplying and mu, which is one of the false parameters, and we could express the relationship of theta and omega in the same motion in this form. And actually, with this form, which form of the relationship between theta and omega, we can get two critical conditions. It's like while we are having a really ideal condition, while we're really spinning the ball in a very, very high speed, we can actually expect this component's value is nearly to 0. And we can get this, actually the tilt of the angle have actually a max of sine, which is equal to this part. And as also we can calculate threshold, which is the lowest angular velocity we have to give the balls for it to tilt and later form the motion of the high frequency here. So then it's our experimental setup. It's the material that we use in our experiment and constructing a ball. Since the premise statement did not directly say that two steel balls are joined together directly on the surface over a constant distance. So other than just sticking them on the surface by AV glue, we also did another comparison with a light wooden pole connected in the middle. And you can see our construction of our experiment. There's a camera on top and there's a camera on the side and a polymeter tangle we could use to calibrate our measurements. Okay, so this is the experimental data. So the layout here. So firstly, we're discussing on what is the effect of airstream. So very clearly that this is a typical graph of the change of angular velocity after you blow a tube on it. So, well, firstly, at the part after you spin it by hand, so the balls live and like trying to rotate at a constant speed. But after you blow the wind on the balls, which gives it a certain give it an acceleration, there's a geometrical lift here you can see, and later it just keeps on to an equilibrium, which we believe that actually the role of the point airstream in this problem is actually giving it a high speed of equilibrium. So we could just like verify this condition here and going on to the next other experiment. So here's the comparison of our experiment model that we mentioned and our real data. So we can see that in our model we propose like 0.4 minus sine theta, which is the y-axis here, represented here, and then g over r times omega squared, which is the x-axis here. We suppose that these two values should be equal, so that we collect all the data here as the blue dot and draw the regression or the best fitting line here. So we can see that actually the slope is very clear to 1 and very close to 1, and intercept is very close to 0, and which has a very high coefficient of relativity, which is very close to our prediction from the model. And as for the red dots, why does it not align to this line over here? Because it's the time when the two steel balls are trying to acquire the steady state, and they had not done it, so it would not like form in a line. And thereafter, because like we consider friction as a major role, as an important role in our phenomenon, so we discuss the phenomenon on different platform materials. So as you can see here, this one graph is done on the glass platform, which is made of glass, and the one with sandpaper. And as you can see here, is like experiment state with glass actually has a higher discrete degree of the data, which I used to parallelize to express here. It will be more clear to see. And what we suppose which caused this phenomenon is because that, well, we're having a larger coefficient of friction, such as taking a sandpaper sample, because you're adding a little force and it will generate a lot of friction. And it will actually act as a roll, which while the wheels are slipping from the PRM, which is say as the pure rotation motion, well, there's a little slipping between them. The contact which has a higher coefficient of friction, such as the sandpaper, will give a greater force, like trying to force the condition, instant condition, back into the PRM condition. And that's what we suppose. And next we discussed about like different hard distance, like I said about mu, and mu is actually the total length of the ratio of the total length to the centroid to the one of harder ball and the radius. So as you can see here, the one with no pole actually just like you can see here, so the angular velocity of the rotation will be same to the spin velocity, and which is pretty correct. And as you can see in the difference, after we measure the red dot, which is the spin velocity, and the blue dot, which is the rotational speed, we can see there's those difference between them. But after we correct it with the mu, which is one of the parameter here, as stated in the short pole 1.13 and long pole 1.22. We can see it perfectly matches our prediction. So in conclusion, so firstly explain the phenomenon. So at the beginning of the motion, we use two balls, we use two hands to spin the balls, and which potentially gives the balls a lift, and which allows it to spin and obtain PRM. And after that, it gives the ball an ideal condition for a very high frequency. And later we give the ball an acceleration by air current, which indeed meets the our condition in high frequency, and the balls will continue to rotate for a while, and in very high speed it could even go to like 2 minutes or 3 minutes or even longer time. Okay, so and in quantitative in the phenomenon with order stack, we could see that there's an correlation between the rotational speed and spin velocity, and then we can see we could express the correlation between the tilt of angle, the angle of tilt, and the rotational speed and any other relevant parameters here. And friction provided by contact form, which we're seeing that has actually a role of playing as a stabilizer of the phenomenon. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Questions?
So in the beginning, you mentioned that the dissipated force, which you named was the frictional force, causes the ball to spin, or rather generate a lift. Can you clarify on that?
No, well, actually, it gives the balls a chance to lift. And while the two balls are lifting, while only one ball are touching the ground, so it would spin like.
So are you saying,
understand.
because there's a kinetic frictional force, are you suggesting that there's a translational movement in the motion of the hurricane balls?
What do you mean by translational movement?
As in, can I have it?
Of course.
So, this is no translation movement. When you move it like this, now there's a kinetic
Yes.
force. So you're saying that as it spins, it moves?
No. Actually, what it means is that in the very first initial process, we try to rotate the ball like in this direction, right? And as in the z-axis. But after that, we think that because since you are doing it with your hands, you're not going to spin it correctly on where it was. You are going to give it a net force on center, which would act like you are going to travel far as distant, and it's just start to rotate. So, well, in this distance, what happened in this distance is actually give us another relative velocity of the balls of the contact points, which allows the balls to tilt, and which further, after it tilts, it allows it to spin. Because since when the two balls are both touching on the ground, you cannot spin.
So can I go back to one of your slides? You tied in the I through to the IZ.
IZ?
Yes, you were talking about different spaces. That was one of your
Hands up.
previous slides.
Hands up. Come back.
Do you want to look over the questions we gave you?
Hello, my name is Kelsey Wang, and today I'll be proposing hurricane balls, question 6. So this is the problem statement. Two steel balls that are joined together can be spun at incredibly high frequencies, and first spinning them by hand, and then blowing them through a tube, like a drinking straw. So we have to explain and investigate this phenomenon. So here's a video of how it works. So summary. We found that the reporter's presentation's theory focused on the moment of inertia and the coordinates.
Also, he talked about lifting, as well as the effects of air on the motion of the balls. However, we think that although it is very structured and very theoretical, perhaps he could elaborate a bit more, like how the parameters are supposed to tie together, and how they are like explained, but without like the mathematics. Give us more intuitive and physical explanation of the phenomenon itself. Like, what do you think is the most important factor in this phenomenon? And for experiment, there's a very nice setup, and he also considered the side and the top views. But we want to see how he controlled his variables and like how he how he analyzed the videos and what were his units in the data collection. And regarding the experimental data, we consider the effects of wind speed. We also consider other kinds of balls, and also consider the friction between surfaces like glass and sand. We thought that was very good and a very good consideration on his part. But like we said before, he did not label axis, and also it was quite unclear like what the direct effect was. Like it was not very clearly stated how it was related to his theory. So we feel like he could maybe elaborate a bit more on that in the discussion. That would be fantastic. So let the discussion begin.
So, well, I firstly like take to the next page so I could see like what is the so firstly about the system, you mean like not to explain so mathematically. So well firstly regarding this is actually the system will calculate all the energy.
Because I saw that in one of the previous slides you had this diagram. So you have this one. So which are the axes you were referring to when you wrote that? Can you go back to this slide?
Oh, you mean this one?
Yes. So
You
can
mean
you tell
which
me?
is 1,
Yes.
2, and 3?
What is one and what is
So
two?
firstly, regarding it, the one is refers to this one, which at the beginning is coincides the axis, and this one as the I'll write it in the moment of inertia. And the one 3, and actually 2 is actually well, you know, perpendicular to all this.
So it does not matter. So you left it out of the equation.
Yeah.
So I think you should explain that a bit.
Oh yeah.
Because under normal circumstances, you can't just ignore a whole axis.
Oh yeah, because I think it's pretty minor in this equation since like well like very fastly like less than a half second will become into steady state. And while in steady state it will actually not matter because since there will no change on the end.
Okay.
So
Okay, second thing. Before that, the ground that you're actually is like this. This is the ground and this is the hurricane point. So there is a point of contact over here.
yes.
Do you consider any possible gravitational force, normal forces that could interfere with the?
Oh yes. Okay.
Because-
I could show you
Because
here.
when we saw the videos that you showed, we saw that it was spinning in two directions. We immediately thought of like the gyroscopic precession.
So actually, well, I've got like two main approach to this problem. It's like firstly, it's about the energy because I consider the aspect of energy is actually greater since we, as our understanding, like most of the motion in the universe are going to a state with a lower energy.
So you did not consider any gravitational
Yes,
force?
you can see here is another model which approaches with precession. So you can see we can calculate the angular momentum through all the construction of our measurement, and we can calculate, as you can see, the gravitational torque in here. So we can therefore actually get to the same conclusion there.
Okay, so you did consider the gravitational
Yes,
force.
yes.
And what do you think was the effect? Because in our model, when we consider this, so there's a normal force going on. There's a gravitational force down here, but there's like a force up here. That's the normal force.
Yes.
And then, so that means that there's a component, because you did not mention this explicitly in your presentation, but when you were drawing your diagram, you had already implicitly tilted your frame of reference. It's no longer like this. It is tilted like this.
Yes, so
So therefore, when we look at the normal force, we have to also consider this section of normal force. That is what we're interested in. And are you familiar with like the right-hand rule? So when you have a radius over here, so you put the force is over there, radius over there, force is over there. So that means that there's actually a torque in that direction. And that direction is the ET direction. Did you consider that right?
you mean like this direction?
Yes, that's right. consider
We
that
think that it is originally like one of contained in its the model itself, because since while you analyze it in energy, it actually shows not only tendency but also the endpoint where the
So
motion
you
will go.
already implicitly consider that in your.
Yes, because I believe that we will contain it.
I personally feel that it might have been, no posings, I feel that it could have been more explicitly stated in the presentation to avoid this kind of confusion, but that's okay, good that you recognized it. So, can you go to your slide where you have your variables, all your variables?
Oh, okay. That's why we got.
So, looking at your rotational spin and your rotational, so omega and W and omega. So you do not think they are equal?
They are equal while the two bolts are joined together directly on the surface. But after we add a constant length on it, like this, it's going to change. Because since like every round of it, like the radius of the spin motion and the rotation motion would not be the same. So it could further get a correlation with mu. Yes.
So also in your experimental data, you mentioned that your theory only works in steady state. So can you clarify what assumptions you made when you said steady state? Because otherwise, according to your graph, the one when you said that the velocity approaches an equilibrium, the implication is that it will stay in equilibrium forever.
It's for a while, because since there are still some kind of factors such as the air resistance, which does not act as a major role in the first part of it, since we are blowing the balls with the air tube, which actually creates an air surrounded the two balls.
So you do not think the air friction plays a big role in your
In the first part, well, it's
in the first part,
accelerating.
which is when you're blowing on it
Yes.
with your straw.
Of course, if you are saying the wind jet caused by the wind you're blowing, then yes, of course, because it's accelerating the ball. But after you stop it, like it's trying to spin by itself, it's dominant, pretty dominant, because it's still like rotating at very high speed.
So you're saying that when the ball is like this and you're blowing on it, so that means that you're exerting a tangential force.
Yes.
That is caused by the wind. And then there is also
actually, I believe that it's because you blow the wind and how the wind going to give the balls that force is by friction. Because since like there must be airflow.
So you do not think that when the air molecules when you actually blow on something, you do not think it actually has a force component?
We think yes, but actually, as shown in our first experimental data, we think that actually the only purpose of using an air tube to blow it is simply giving it a higher velocity. Because once we say it's got PRM, which is a pure rotation motion, it has the condition to maintain a very, very high velocity, because you can actually gain less friction while in this condition.
Have you ever thought of, I see you have done a lot of things with angular velocity. Have you ever measured the angle in relation to time? As it
Yes, but
understood?
okay, so we can see here another backup slide. Oh, where is it? Okay, here.
So can you explain what the peak is?
So what is the peak is actually what I correlating to our what is it called? Contracture.
Never mind. So okay, so I see what the peak is now.
Yes.
So the angle in this situation actually degrades. And in your exactly the actual
I can firstly explain that, because since that we have a limitation on the length of our high-speed camera, so we have to do this like in 1.5 seconds. So this degrades very fast. Or in other like it should be like you give a peak and like hold on horizontally for a long time.
the lift angle is it referring to this angle?
Yes.
So it refers to that. So it degrades in 1.5
And it's going to like hold a long horizontal line in the middle, like for 2 minutes or whatever, and it degrades.
So what do you think exactly causes this degrade? Because you already mentioned that you have ignored frictional force. You have basically ignored a lot of things.
Because while you're like doing this air resistant air, while the rotational speed is slightly going down, they are going to decrease the spin velocity characteristics, and since the friction actually gets back to it while you're facing this decay, and the
Friction, wait, when you say friction, are you referring to air friction or are you referring to the
I
friction?
mean the friction at the same time when it's no longer stable.
So friction at this point.
Yeah, actually all friction should
All
be
friction,
considered.
so air friction and friction at that point.
Yes.
So, and you said that when the two balls are joined together,
Yes.
there's no kinetic friction.
I mean, while it's spinning,
Well,
but while
spinning.
we stop blowing it with air, the rotational speed just slow down due to the air resistance, and while it's simply going down while the third axis is trying to keep its angular momentum, and it will still spin in the same velocity, which causes a slipping.
So friction, air friction doesn't matter.
Does matter,
So
yes.
have you considered it?
We think it matters after it reaches the step state. So we think that actually what matters in this problem statement is like how are we going to acquire the state and what the state could tell us.
So you're not using the derivation?
Yes.
Okay. So you think the effect of the air is only limited to the frictional force? That is the only thing that the air has to do.
Yes, but of course if you look at very closely, like it's a lot of things that air could potentially do to it.
Because
other than
I see that you have
accidentally.
mentioned the Magnus effect, and according to our own theory and our own beliefs, that the Magnus effect, especially when it's on something that spins as fast as a hurricane ball, should not have a negative effect.
Yes, but actually you could like correct this with, because things like as just see, the Magnus effect here is going to like push downward, right?
It depends on the spin of your ball.
Yes, just for this graph, for example, is pushed down. So which is pretty similar to the gravity which we stated was given. So what's to do with this model, we could actually correlate the G with a larger value, and then we simply go back to our theoretical model.
So you just combine all the forces into this general gravitational force that's actually
Yes.
in this direction.
Yes, because they are acting in the same way.
Okay, so can you go back to your experimental setup?
Okay. Yes.
So it's very important in an experiment to have control variables. Can you please tell me how and what were the variables that you controlled in your experiment?
So mainly about like what we've done like quantitatively is about the relationship between the spin velocity and the rotational speed at first. Right. So in this case, because they're very hard to make same angular velocity by your hand, so we just measure it by checker and just compare it with a lot of.
So you did not control the velocity, and you did not control the airflow as well. You did not control the speed.
Oh, we control the airflow like in one, because like the air
In one of your experiments.
this one. You can see here. There's only one kind of pressure since the air compressor in our school is actually only working continuously in
Also,
one
you used
pressure.
an air compressor. Was it? How did you regulate the airflow in your air compressor? Do you have a regulator? Well, it's like,
I just keep it working, so it will only have one stable pressure. So I cannot do like a higher pressure or lower pressure, it will decay or it will just get higher.
So time up.
so in our discussion, we talked about a lot of factors, especially in regards with the forces that are acting on the ball. So we clarified that the opponent thinks that the frictional force does have an effect on the ball, but he did not explicitly state it in his model. And he felt that the Magnus effect could be simplified as a gravitational force. However, the opposing side does not believe that the Magnus effect could be so simply generalized into the gravitational force, where the gravitational force actually causes a torque in the E2 direction that actually causes it to precess as a gyroscope would. And the Magnus effect, depending on the velocity, direction, and the spin of the ball, will actually exert upwards or downwards force on the hurricane balls. So for this reason, we did not think that it could be so easily ignored. And also we discussed whether the airflow was controlled, and although the opponent reporter said that it was controlled. The opponent side does not think that that lack of
Hands up.
regulator meant that it was controlled.
The one, and when you turn to page 5. Far away. Yes, and we can see in the video there's something on the ball, and is that glue or something else? Will that
Oh, you mean in the
affect-
middle of it?
Yeah.
Oh, because like compared to the ball, it's actually trace of the eddy glue, but which is relatively very light compared to the weight of the steel. So we think it's better.
So, I think if that side is on the ground, will the glue touch the floor and make some extra frictions or something else?
Oh no, we try to control that to for the trace to like contain in between this area. So it will affect.
This condition cannot be avoided.
Oh, we did try to avoid, and we did.
So this is just a model that.
It's just a model of it, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, that's fine. And maybe page 13, please.
Yes.
In the MGR sign theta, it's the potential energy.
Yes.
Where did you take the zero platform, please?
Actually, we've stated like when both of the balls are lying in ground, it's 0.
Yes.
Yes, and we take it as a 0 ball.
Okay. Thank you. And then about your discussion, I saw the appendix 4. Can I go to that
Appendix
page?
D, you
That's
mean?
far away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious about why the angle will be bigger and smaller on the static duration.
You mean this part or this part?
This duration.
This duration. Oh, because
Yeah.
this is actually done in a very short time due to the limitation of our high-speed camera. So it's only like less 1.5 seconds. So while we originally do it in 2 minutes, well, it would like form a very stable.
Because I'm curious about if this is the theta, so it means that this angle will be vibrating during the spinning, and what caused that?
Oh, you mean such as an implication? But according to our observation, while the balls are really spinning in a very high velocity, that vibration is very minor, actually.
And
Well, it's almost smooth.
but
In-
why? Why can you
why
get this?
Because we think it seems that it's because this time scale is too small. It's actually the balls are not doing their great job on trying to get the steady state.
And what do you think?
In our observations, there was not a lot of fluctuation.
Hands up.
Thank you. good afternoon, and I'm going to make a quite fast review of hurricane ball. And about the statement is we use two metal balls and we can spin it with hand or a jet of wind. Okay, and I'm going to make a summary of the reporter. About the theory, he made clear explanations, and we can notice how it works very fast. And the setup is, quite normal, and just give it. And parameters, I think the material of the platform is a good parameter that they put it in this experiment, and I very appreciate they did that, and that's quite good. And about the experiment, they observed the spinning of the hurricane ball, and they have a good fit between theory and their experiment, and I think that's quite good. And about the results, the blowing time longer and angular velocity bigger can give the ball an acceleration and obey PRM. Okay, and however, they got some cons that they didn't define the 0 point at first, but they fixed it at last, so that's minor part. And about the reporter, I noticed some advantage of him, and he got good explaining at the problem, and he is very familiar with the experiment part, and he explained it very clearly. And some suggestions is some page numbers and some words are hidden by the background part, and we can't clearly see it, and maybe you can fix it next time. And another suggestion is can define clearer for the theory part, because it's very complicated, I think. And this summary of the opponent. The opponent has some advantage that they catch the most important problem. They ask the question of the friction force and the free body diagram that they discussed them there very long time, and she has very clear expression ability. I'm sorry. And suggestions, maybe she can focus more on the experiment part, and that's just a small suggestion. And about the discussion, we just get some points that the opponent asked that did the reporter consider about the torque going into the paper, and because the diagram they give us is all 2D diagrams, so that's a good question for the reporter, and the reporter get good reports, get good replies, and I think that's good discussion. And another problem is about the velocity at start, and the reporter said it's spin by hand. And I was wondering that if you have any ways to make this part more specific to use a way to spin the ball, but I think it's difficult because we did an experiment too. So yeah, that's just small suggestions. Okay, and that's my review of the hurricane ball, and thank you guys.
So, firstly, throughout our presentation, we did some mechanical description on what kind of condition is required for the balls to spin at very high velocity. And in the discussion session, while the opponents did have a lot of discussions on the frictional energy, gravitational energy, and also cause the effect from the Magnus effect caused by the air. But because since that while we are discussing a precession model, actually the torque on the I2 side is actually what causes the system to precess. So which is what's caused the system for the precession. So absolutely, the reporter still believes that the Magnus effect only has to do with the gravitational acceleration, and thanks to the reviewer, we also believe that there's a lot of constructive suggestions we could do to improve our presentation, and thank you to all. And that's all. Thank you.
main reason for the after blowing the air, the spinning will be very fast? What is the main reason?
Because you could easily blow an airstream very, very fast. That is why. Because while you're trying to push the ball like 100 kilometers per second, it's very, very hard. But relatively, when you're trying to blow a wind very, very fast, it's very easy. So while we're doing this, so while we're doing this experiment, we're trying to use the air to push the hurricane balls while it's in the PR condition, which means it has not a lot of thing to do with the friction from the contact force, from the contact point, and that's give us a very quick setup on giving it a very, very high frequency.
What about performance? What is it?
Can I clarify the question? Is this
What is
question?
the main reason? After you blow in the air, the spinning is increased. It can be very high. You can go to very high speed.
After you finish blowing the air,
Yeah. What is the main reason?
well, when we observed the magnet force, we found that even as it spun, sometimes at certain conditions, it will actually cause an upward force and cause the angle to not degrade as fast.
What about you?
I think that the velocity you blow wind to it is much more bigger than you use your hand to spin it. So using blowing force is a quite smart way to make a very high speed.
Oh wait, sorry, I stand corrected. So is the question asking why, like when we spin the hurricane balls by hand, it's slower than when we actually blow air on the balls? Is that
Yeah, well, sort of. So after the blowing, it becomes very fast. What's the main reason?
That's because the air exerts a force on the ball that we can generalize as the tangential force. And in that tangential force, we will consider both the frictional force of the air and as well as the actual jet, the force that the air jet applies onto it.
And then if there are any limit on the angle, the steering
Oh
angle?
yes, because you can see here, since then we know that since the well, like here, so you can see in omega, since the rotational speed is always positive, and when it goes to very
I just need a simple answer. I mean, if you change those parameters, so
The magnetic angle changes, yes.
Is there any limit for the angle?
Oh yes.
I mean,
yes, I've shown in my theory part.
so if you blow,
yes,
if
like
you
here,
blow the
you can see there is indeed a maximum for the
okay, so if this parameter is fixed, so there is a maximum angle.
Yes, it's like almost you're trying to approach that very, very closely whenever you're trying to make it faster.
Okay, so no matter how high you just blow it, it's just
Yes,
it will stay at the angle. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you agree with the support, both of you?
We didn't done this experiment and fix it with the laws on there, but I think he's quite right because I can understand what he's talking about.
How about you?
Can I ask for a rephrase of the question again?
Okay, my question is, if you blow the ball very, very hard, okay, very fast spring, okay, and can the angle go very, very high?
There's a limit to which.
Is there a maximum angle?
Yes, there is a maximum angle because according to the equation, it says because like there's a limit to how fast.
Because the maximum angle is over here. It's nothing to do with the speed of the string, the L string, right?
So, can I make a further explanation of it?
Okay.
So, well, like the two steel balls are actually spinning in a very, very high speed while you're trying to blow it so hard. So actually, one more force inside is the centrifugal force. Because since there would be a tendency trying to pull the balls upward, and in the outside, since they are going so fast, so they will actually form an angular angle, which is the result of an kind of equilibrium.
important